In the shadows of September 1683, Europe stood upon the brink of annihilation.
Vienna trembled as the Ottoman tide pressed closer, each hour narrowing the walls of survival.
Encircled by an empire that seemed unstoppable, Vienna awaited its fate. The vast Ottoman host encircled Vienna, its camp a sea of banners and fire.
Steel was sharpened, powder loaded, the empire prepared its storm of fire.
The crescent banners rose high, symbols of a force that seemed without end. With thunder and fire, the great guns of the empire tore into the walls of Vienna. Stone crumbled beneath the storm, each strike shaking the city to its core.
Upon the crumbling ramparts, defenders faced a tide they could scarcely comprehend.
Each blast carved fear into the hearts of those who stood upon the walls.
Within the shattered streets, the innocent clung to hope as stone and fire rained down.
The very walls of Vienna groaned, breaking under the empire's relentless assault.
Relentless drums thundered, each beat a promise of conquest pressing upon the city.
Before the walls, an empire stretched vast and unbroken, pressing the city toward its final hour.
Within the battered walls, the people of Vienna labored to hold back the storm.
In trembling hands, innocence clung to fragments of a world about to fall.
In shadowed chambers, the leaders of Vienna searched for salvation amid despair.
Upon the maps of war, trembling hands betrayed the weight of hopelessness. The faces of command bore the mark of despair, yet the city demanded endurance.
Streets became walls, and every hand, young and old, fought to hold the line.
Exhaustion hollowed the defenders, yet still they clung to the walls of their city.
Stone towers fell, and with them, men bled to keep Vienna standing.
In the shadows below, prayers rose where weapons could not.
Faith alone stood unbroken when stone and steel faltered. The empire's cannons thundered without mercy, shaking earth and soul alike.
Men fell as the walls trembled, yet each life became another stone in the city's defense.
Flames licked the rooftops, and even the innocent fought the inferno to keep their city alive.
Beneath the earth, every chamber became a hospital, and every soldier bore scars of fire. Vienna lay in smoke and ruin. In the halls of command, desperation spilled into anger, for no path promised survival. On faces carved by time, the weight of doom pressed heavier with each hour.
Maps tore beneath desperate hands, for plans could not halt the tide.
The walls groaned, splitting inch by inch beneath unending fire.
1683, an empire seemed unstoppable, and all of Europe's fate hung on a single stand.
Beyond the besieged walls, a new host gathered. From the shadows stepped a commander, armored in resolve and steel.
Steel met flesh in his grip, and resolve burned unshaken in his gaze.
Around him, loyalty bowed its head, and hope found a face in their commander.
In the light of a breaking storm, the king's armor shone like a herald of deliverance.
In his gaze burned a promise that Europe would not fall this day. The Hussars armed their steeds, steel and muscle, bound for destiny. Iron hands steadied restless beasts, for soon the storm would break.
The earth trembled beneath hooves that would soon thunder across history.
Wings of legend rose once more, stretching wide as dawn's promise.
White wings caught the sun, gleaming like fire forged for the heavens.
Formations of steel and wings stretched across the earth, a host born for deliverance. Among his winged host, the king rode as a beacon of deliverance. Upon his steed, he rose, as though faith itself had lifted him. At the king's sign, 1,000 lances fell as one.
Wings closed ranks, a shining rampart against the dark. The earth quivered beneath the promise of thunder.
Iron met earth, and the charge began to breathe. A shining tide gathered, cresting with wings and steel. He lifted steel, and with it, the hearts of every rider. Command flowed through steel, knitting the host into one will. Thus the savior came into view, wings unfurled, ready to break the night.
Upon the crest observed, a tide of steel and feathers.
The hill trembled as the wings of Poland took flight. Iron hooves bit the earth, loosing a storm of dust and stone. 1,000 spears leveled, one intent, forged in steel. White wings shimmered, each feather a promise of thunder. Down the mountain they poured, a torrent clothed in feather and flame. Each rider bore the fire of a cause greater than his life.
With a cry beyond words, the charge became a storm unleashed.
Like a living avalanche, they tore down from the heights. The valley shook, the air split as the wings of wrath descended. The crescent wall braced, shields locked in desperate defiance. A storm of arrows darkened the heavens above the charge. Even under the storm, the wings drove forward, unbroken. Steel met wood, and the crescent wall splintered in fire and dust. The wall collapsed beneath hooves of thunder.
Terror flashed in the eyes of those who faced the storm.
Iron pierced flesh, carving a path through the ranks.
Steel shrieked as east and west collided in dust and fire.
Spears splintered, men crushed beneath the avalanche of hooves.
Through shattered ranks, the winged storm poured into the heart of battle. The Crescent cavalry met the wings in a storm of steel and dust. Iron lances hurled riders from their saddles into the dirt of defeat. Sabers shrieked against scimitars in a tempest of steel. The wings poured like a flood into the shattered crescent. Blades carved through flesh as the charge drove ever deeper. The crescent fell beneath iron hooves and sweeping wings. Through smoke and flame, the wings carved the field asunder. Blooded yet unyielding, they pressed deeper into the storm.
With wings spread wide, the tide of battle was turned.
The crescent lines shattered, fleeing in clouds of dust and fear. The wings rode over shattered steel and fallen banners. Their proud camp burned, collapsing into ruin and smoke. Even their steeds fled riderless, swept into the tide of fear. Their wagons splintered, scattering steel and bread alike into the dust.
Terror broke men's resolve, driving them into the haze of defeat.
The mighty host scattered, its will broken beyond repair. The Ottoman camp erupted in fire and ruin. Their wagons splintered under the heat of destruction.
Servants and soldiers abandoned all to the flames.
Their stores exploded, vanishing in smoke and flame.
Steel meant for conquest was lost to the blaze.
The great encampment lay consumed by fire and ash.
The proud standard trembled above the ruin. Flames licked the crescent, devouring its pride. The crescent standard cracked and began to fall. The crescent lay broken, scorched and drowned in mud.
The symbol of empire, drowned in smoke and silence. From behind the walls, Vienna beheld the smoldering field of survival.
The weary embraced life, spared by deliverance.
Soldiers of the Empire stood alive, their city unbroken.
A city once condemned knelt in gratitude beneath new banners.
In hours, the tide of horsemen had shattered the siege. Vienna was saved.
The field lay silent, strewn with the wreckage of empire.
The conquerors lay broken,
their weapons swallowed by earth.
Even the saviors bore the price of deliverance in blood. The silence of carrion birds replaced the clash of arms.
Among the wreckage, the living bore witness to history's turn. Amid the ashes, a banner stood, stained but unbroken.
Warriors bowed, not to defeat, but to the weight of survival. Light broke through the smoke, crowning the banner with hope.
Allies rode together, their victory etched in fire and shadow. From Vienna, the fate of a continent began to turn.
The crescent, once unchallenged, sank into mud and ash.
Darkness gave way to a fragile dawn across Europe.
Beneath the white wings, Europe was torn from the abyss, and the Ottoman Empire began its long descent into twilight.
From ruin, the city rose again, its stones bearing the scars of survival. The cross gleamed once more above Vienna, a beacon through the smoke of ages. Life returned to the squares of Vienna, fragile yet defiant. The mighty Crescent Army, once feared, now lay broken in its own camp. From Vienna onward, the empire's shadow began to recede. Europe turned from fire to thought, building strength upon knowledge.
With renewed resolve, Europe marched into a dawning age.
In quiet halls, the wings endured as relics of deliverance. The story does not end here. Walk with us through the chronicles of history.